Hello, everyone. Thank you for making it all the way over here. I bet you were probably in the Arch building earlier, right? Yeah, it's a bit of a trek, so thank you so much for coming all the way over to our panel today. This is NIS America's Wide World of JRPGs, The Power of Stories. I'm your host for today, Anne, and I will be moderating our lovely discussion with our three panelists. So today's guests are sitting here with me. Oh, by the way, first I want to not only welcome all of you here, but everyone on the stream. Thank you for tuning in. If you're watching the stream online, we've got our guests here. So first we have David of Davidvinc RPGs.
Hello.
Then we have Brandon of Just the Gems.
Hello.
And finally, Cameron Hawkins. Thank you for joining us. So does everybody here in the audience like JRPGs? Yeah? Yeah. Good. Have you been by the NIS America booth yet? Yeah? Oh, great. Thank you so much. If not, you can stop by after. You have all weekend. So first of all, I don't think David needs any introduction, but David, could you please introduce yourself
Sure.
today?
I am so happy to be here, y'all. You have no idea. I've never been to a PAX before. I've only been to Seattle one at a time, and I am thrilled to be here. I'm a YouTuber. I talk about all sorts of JRPGs, all sorts of other stuff. I have some cool stuff coming out today because earlier today I was with a different company, and
and now on us, David.
So I have some really cool stuff coming up for y'all as well. So yeah, very excited to be here.
Thank you. So this is your first PAX West. What are your impressions so far?
So far, so good. It's packed. The only other real kind of gaming thing I ever went to was the Anime Expo, which was, I thought, just going to be anime, but it was a lot of video game stuff there too, but this one just seems a lot more focused on video games, a lot more people, a lot more cosplay, and just a lot more fun, yeah.
Great, awesome, thank you. And so, David, you've told us here that the most impressive JRPG story to you is Dragon Quest V.
Yeah.
Can you tell us a bit about that?
I don't want to spoil anything, but I do want to say that I don't like a story that's too overwrought. Is there an echo in here, or is it just me?
I don't know, maybe.
Is there an echo happening? Yeah, I just want to make sure, because it's kind of bothering me. But I don't like I feel like stories nowadays, they might be just like too much. You have to reference an encyclopedia to find things out, go to this in-game thing, and you're like, what was this code name, and this, who is this person, what is this empire, what is going on? A simpler story just told well that everybody can relate to, that's the stories that I relate to. It doesn't have to be too overdone, and I feel like a lot of stories nowadays, it's just too much, and if I put the game down for a day or two, I'm like, what was going on? Who were these people? What's happening? But with something as simple like Dragon Quest V, you just know what's going on. It's just a nice story about a guy who's trying to make it through the world, find his mother, get married, has kids, and it's a beautiful story.
Awesome, thank you so much. We'll definitely hear more about what you like and dislike about JRPG stories in a minute. But next up, Brandon, could you introduce yourself and tell you what you're thinking about PAX so far?
Yeah, hi everybody, I'm Brandon. I run the YouTube channel Just the Gems. I talk about JRPGs pretty much exclusively. I live, eat, breathe, sleep them, which has been a problem until I started a YouTube channel, and then I finally had an outlet to do something about that. PAX has been great. I also have never been to a PAX before. Similarly, the closest thing I had was Anime Expo, which was similar in scope, but like a very different vibe. And I'm really, this is more my vibe, right? It's focused on the games, and there are so many, I've been visiting booths and talking to people, met so many cool people. It's just been fantastic so far.
Awesome, thank you. Glad to hear it. And for you, the most impressive JRPG story is Xenogears. Can you tell us a bit about that? Again, without any spoilers.
So the not overly convoluted story.
At least you don't have to reference an encyclopedia in-game.
No, you have to buy it separately. Exactly. You have to import it. Xenogears was a life-changing game for me. I've talked about this before with people. It is a game that, through its story, through the complexity of its characters and their relationships, it honestly taught me that it's okay to question what you've been taught, right? Like, you don't just have to go along blindly following what you've been told your whole life. And that, like, I think I would be a very different person today if it weren't for Xenogears. So that story is always just going to have a very special place in my heart.
Awesome. Well, thank you. I look forward to hearing more about your JRPG stories, opinions in a bit. But finally, we, of course, have to introduce Cameron Hawkins, last but not least.
Yeah, my name's Cameron Hawkins. I am a freelance writer, host, video talent, you name it. I'm currently in the process of writing a book on Kingdom Hearts through Limited Run. I have a Kingdom Hearts podcast, Unlocking Kingdom Hearts, which is kind of like a book club. So if you're out here and you never played Kingdom Hearts because you felt it was too daunting or whatever, we got like me, a couple of other experts, Alexa Ray Correa, who's written a book on Kingdom Hearts, Jonathan Dornbush, and a newbie, Kevin Diaz, and we basically like dedicate an episode to each game in the series and talk about what we like, what we don't like, the good, the bad, the ugly, everything. And yeah, so that is the thing I do.
Awesome. Well, I guess I can understand then why the most impressive JRPG story for you is Kingdom Hearts 2, but I know there are quite a few Kingdom Hearts games, so what is it about 2 that you really like?
There are, and gosh, how much time do we have? Because I could be here all day talking about Kingdom Hearts 2. So the thing with Kingdom Hearts, I think in general, is there's a lot of stories that are just kind of objective in what it's trying to tell, what it's building, things like that. And I think the beauty of Kingdom Hearts is that, like, everyone can walk away with something different. There's like so many different characters going through different things that you can really relate to on a personal level, in a way that, like, oh, one of the main characters falls to darkness, and then he like has to quell quelling the darkness inside of him. But then to save his friends, he has to release all this darkness. And after he's the vessel of the bad guy in the first game, and then when he releases this darkness, he literally looks like his abuser, and it's just like, dang, that's a lot. Like, you know, it's like those type of things that I just don't really experience in a lot of stories in video games that I just personally could relate to in different ways, and it's like it's an impressive story for me because it's such a personal thing, right? It's not like something like Trails, where it's just incredible world building, characters, like cast and things. It's more of a personal thing for me.
Okay, well, thank you. That's really interesting. So we're going to get into the main discussion for today now that we've introduced everyone, but we're going to be talking about narratives and stories in JRPGs. So this is kind of part of a panel series we're doing at NIS America, which started with our Anime Expo panel back in July. Was anyone actually there at Anime Expo? Oh, yeah.
My wife was also.
Brandon's wife was there. Thank you. Our most hardcore fan in the front row. And we also had an online panel discussion. Was anybody able to watch that one? No, well, you can always go and watch that on our YouTube channel after. Thank you for watching. And today we're kind of going to focus specifically on JRPG stories. So our first discussion at Anime Expo was really, what is a JRPG? You know, what makes it different from a Western RPG? What are the things our folks here like about JRPGs? And now we're going to really dive into stories. So let's get into it. Oh, am I skipping ahead here? So let me just check. So, so the JRPG narrative identity. Sorry, I'm getting ahead of myself. We want to know, like, what exactly is it that makes a JRPG narrative versus a different type of story in a different game? Okay, we can go ahead. There are stories where, you know, a hero goes on a big adventure, you know, kind of your standard hero's journey type of story. They defeat the evil villain at the end. Or there's stories where maybe somebody on your party turns out to be the villain, or, you know, a big twist in the middle. So there's a lot of different types of stories. First of all, I'd like to know, like, what types of stories are your favorites in JRPGs? And I'll start with David, please.
Okay. I like normal, simpler stories. I think that it's very telling that whenever we talked about the stories that we enjoyed, it was all pretty much retro. Like the most modern one was from PlayStation 2. It was older stories that have stood the test of time, simpler stories. Those are the types of stories that I like. That is just, it just resonates with me, you know? Again, whenever a story is too much, too complicated. I can't get into it. It's just like, it's just overwhelming. So I like the simpler stories. You were talking about stories where like, you know, the villain is kind of like a love to hate sort of villain. Like Final Fantasy VI comes to mind with Kefka. I love that story. You know, there's just something to be said for every single character in that game. They're all just wonderful. They have their own motivations going through why they are fighting, why they're doing what they're doing, and then you actually get to see what happens in the midway point. And just everybody's motivations changing, and it stands the test of time. There's something just about it. It's simple, but it's complex at the same time without being too overwrought and getting you down with too much information.
Right. What do you two think about that in terms of having like a clear villain that it's like, here's the villain, he's just bad?
I think it's a tried and true method of, like you were saying, these stories kind of stand the test of time because they're applicable in any generation to any group of people, essentially. And I've enjoyed plenty of stories. You mentioned Kefka is one of my top favorite JRPG villains of all time for that simple love it to hate it kind of aspect of him. So yeah, I think it's great.
Yeah, I mean, I think that I do like the just pure evil villains, but I also like the antagonists that you. Like they're bad, but like their motivation behind it is something you can relate to. Like again, I'm not trying to just be Kingdom Hearts, but like Xemnas in Kingdom Hearts 2, like he's trying to create this artificial Kingdom Hearts because he wants to feel, because he's a nobody and nobodies can't feel anything, and it's just like, dang, okay, like I get that, like you know, you want to feel human, you want to feel real, you want to feel authentic, right. And so yeah, I think that there's a lot of variety in like what makes a really good JRPG villain.
Yeah, sure.
Awesome, thank you. And now I'd like to go down to Brandon, and you can talk more about these stories, the dramatic stories that you like.
Yeah, I tend to prefer the more heavy, dramatic. Couldn't tell by Xenogears, the heavy, dramatic stories, right? Like lots of twists and turns, characters that are compelling and complicated and nuanced. You know, that's not to say that I don't like lighthearted or unserious JRPGs. Like I absolutely do. Like you need that every now and then. If nothing else, if you're doing nothing but like super serious, heavy stories all the time, you're going to be kind of a bore at parties. You know what I mean? Like you need to have some kind of variety. So I really like, you know, like Final Fantasy 16. Has anybody played Final Fantasy 16? Some of you have. You know that's a serious game. That's super serious with a capital S. But there's like humor woven throughout, like Uncle Byron. Anybody remember Uncle Byron? All that stuff is just fantastic. I love when story, and that's how you can tell a story is really expertly written. Is you have this level of seriousness broken up by these breaths of fresh air with this sort of lightheartedness to it. You know what I mean? So yeah, I think that serious stories with elements of humor is kind of my personal preference.
Okay, what do you two think about that? Humor good, bad?
I love humor. I'm a pretty happy, upbeat guy. I love humor in a JRPG. Anytime that an RPG can make me laugh, it automatically comes up to like the top of my list. And it's funny that you brought up 16, because I was talking about games that you need to reference an encyclopedia for. I was specifically talking about Final Fantasy 16.
It has a librarian who's...
I know, literally. It was like, I remember the developers came out and they were like, we don't even know what's going on in our own story, we're writing it. And I'm thinking to myself, well, then why are you writing this story? Why don't you write something that people can understand? So then they went and they put in that encyclopedia, and I'm thinking to myself, like, yeah, I guess that's good, but at the same time, I don't want to reference that because it takes me out of the game. I just want to be able to play the game and know what's going on and not have to figure it out. Like, I went to school, I learned, I did my profession, I learned, I play games not to learn. I just want to have a good time, you know?
Yeah, I like, I think that there could be more room for funny and upbeat stories in general. I think we more see them in specific characters, like Dorothy in Trails in the Sky is like so funny as a photographer.
She's so ditzy.
Yeah, exactly. Or Yona in Trails from Zero or Trails to Azure, who's like this nerd, like guy in the sewers that wants to be friends, but also is like, oh, I can't be friends with you. And there's this really funny back and forth with her, like him and Tio, and yeah. So it's one of those. There's different ways to implement like the funny and upbeat aspects of a story.
Awesome, thank you. And finally, Cam, I'd like to hear more about the stories you really like.
Yeah, so I don't have like a specific in mind when I play, and this is kind of digging into what we're going to talk about later, but like I just kind of play a game and hope that I get a story that I enjoy, and so I have to just kind of go with the flow and see how things turn out. Sometimes I'll play something that's like, okay, this was fine, and then there's something else where I'm just like, this was amazing. I didn't expect it to go from here to here, and so it really just kind of depends for me.
I see. Would you say like unexpected things happening in a story is like really hooks you, or not necessarily? It sounds like you like all kinds of stories.
Yeah, like unexpected things are always exciting, like plot twists that like make sense or feel earned, of course. Like sometimes that happens and it just feels random. It's like, okay, why is this happening? And the story doesn't do a good way translating that. Yeah, it really is. It could be like a wide variety of different stories. Again, like Kingdom Hearts, super feel emotional trails, like world building characters, and they're just like so different things that have an equal level of enjoyment.
Awesome, thank you. We'll move on to our next question that really is kind of getting to the heart of like what we're talking about when we talk about JRPG stories. So we've all sort of almost like danced around it, but is there something that's specifically unique to JRPG stories, or are they just like any other stories? And can I start with you, David, again?
Okay. Always putting me on the spot right here. Yeah, so as far as, okay, so if we're speaking specifically about JRPG stories, then we have to compare them to Western RPG stories. We just have to. So I feel like Western RPG stories, yes, they do have a story that they want to tell, but because of the way that the world is structured, it's hard to focus on that narrative. They instead just kind of want to have like, things going on at all times. So a JRPG allows you to really focus on a beginning and an end. And they know the story that they want to tell you. They know how you're going to go. They know which town you're going to go to next. They know which dungeon you're going to go to next. They know which character you're going to go to next as well. Whereas with the Western RPG, you don't know, because you can go through the game in any different way at all. So there are some open world JRPGs, and it does work Even Dragon Warrior games back in the day, they were open world. Once you got the ship, you could go wherever you wanted to. And it just worked out. You got your orbs, or you got your crests, or you did whatever. Even in Dragon Warrior 1, I mean, you could go to Cantlin first if you wanted to. I don't know why you'd want to, but you could. It was completely open world. So JRPGs, yeah, they have their openness, they have their closeness, but they still are telling one specific story, one thread all the way through.
Awesome. What do you two think about that? Agree, disagree?
Yeah, generally speaking, I agree with that. I think that kind of storytelling is really a hallmark of the genre.
Yeah, I mean, when you play a JRPG, especially something more like a Dragon Quest or Initial Dragon Quest or like a Pokemon, like you have the freedom to go to different places, but then you still need to do the specific things to continue that story forward.
Yeah, there's a separation between like world exploration and plot movement.
Yeah.
Right?
And so for you, Brandon, what else is like really unique to JRPG stories in your mind?
To me, JRPGs are like, I said that they're kind of like community-based stories, right? Like you typically, and not always, obviously, but you typically have a party of characters coming together. And even though there's typically like a leader, a main character, like it's really a story about all of these characters working together. And again, to contrast it with like the Western RPG approach, you might have a party of characters in a Western RPG, but based on your choices, this character might leave or this character might join you, and it's just kind of, it's up to you to kind of set the story. JRPGs are much more like deliberately developed, deliberately written and paced, to give you the experience that the creator wants you to have. Now, there's varying levels of choice within those, but like, you know, talking about a game like Trails, like or a series like Trails, like there's a story there, this grand story that's being told across multiple games. If that was a Western series, like I don't know how you would do that with that kind of storytelling. So it would be basically impossible. So that to me is kind of the hallmark of a JRPG.
Yeah, I think the best example of that is something like Mass Effect, right? But in Mass Effect, you're still making these definitive choices where like you could take one different choice and it could potentially be a different whole series run.
Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, you bring up the point of choice. So a lot of JRPGs are really like, this is the narrative we want to tell you, and there's not a lot of deviation from that, but it sounds like, yeah, Western RPGs, you get more of that. You shape the characters, you shape the party, and you can really impact the direction the story goes in. So
and they are opening up the worlds a bit more, like Visions of Mana just came out, and that's open regions. There's Xenoblades, which is big open region, but it's still, at the end of the day, you have to get through that region, and it's open, but you still need to get to the next town.
Right.
There's still a path.
There aren't necessarily like multiple endings and different, you know, routes you can take to get to that ending.
Yes.
Sort of the same story they want to tell every time. All right, awesome. And then finally, Cam, what about you?
I think that, because we have to talk about Western RPGs when we talk about JRPGs, is that with Western RPGs, and I would even like include something like the From Software games, right?
Souls,
The Souls-like games that like those. Well, so when we see those games, it feels like the creativeness that you expect from a Japanese developer, just in a Western RPG style.
Totally.
Right. And so for me, I think that we see JRPGs are more creative in most cases, we just see these original worlds that are being created. We're seeing these original characters that are being created. In Western RPGs, we do get that sometimes, but even like last year, right, Baldur's Gate 3, like that was based off of D&D and like some already existing characters. Like, yes, there was some of their own characterization that Larian did, but that was still like based off of something. While with JRPGs, 99% of the time, it's completely new, it's completely original. We get a story that they know that they want to tell that is like concrete, definitive in most ways. And that's what, like, I wouldn't say that JRPGs are like from the ground up unique, but I think that there's more creative aspects that are put into JRPGs comparatively.
I love that you brought up Baldur's Gate 3, because there was, maybe 2 years ago, there was that whole thing about the death of the turn-based RPG. You know, turn-based is gone. It's all action all the time now. And then Baldur's Gate 3 came and blew everybody shot that out of the water. So thank you, Baldur's Gate 3. We appreciate you.
So that was kind of like, we have a couple sections here for our panel, and that was the first section to kind of warm us up. But then we want to talk more about what role the narrative has in JRPGs and how it's working with the other elements of the game. So our next question is sort of, to you all, you evaluate games, you probably review them and talk about them on your channels or in articles. And so for you, what is, when you're evaluating a game, what role does story play? Is it the most important thing, least important? I think from our discussion, it's probably pretty important, but I'd like to hear more about, how it factors into your decision about how you're gonna, evaluate a game overall. So again, sorry, David, to put you on the spot.
I wouldn't say it's 100% the most, and I wouldn't say it's the least either, but it's definitely up there. It's like, second to most important. Because to me, the most important thing is the fun factor. Yeah. If I'm bored out of my mind and I'm playing a game, like, it sucks. I don't care how good the story is if it's boring. So story is up there because it helps make it interesting. And back in the day, stories were pretty much just, you go out and save the princess, and you save the world, and you're done. Nowadays, there's all sorts of different stories. There might be a slice of life story, like an Atelier game, something like that, where you really get to just, learn about the people in this particular town, learn about these characters, and really just get to know their life. Or there could be like a world-spanning epic story. I personally love the world-spanning epic stories. And also, with the advent of indie developers, there's a billion RPGs out there to play. So competition is really fierce, and the developers need to get it together. And we're hearing some really interesting stories nowadays, stories that we never got whenever I was a kid. I remember a story that blew me away whenever I was a kid was something like Breath of Fire 2. And looking at that now, you might just seem like, oh, that's just trite. It's just like an evil church. But back in the day, an evil church was like, oh, God, I can't believe that there's an evil church. You know, it was crazy. So, so we are seeing a lot of different stories today, which I am happy about.
Yeah, so for you, if the gameplay is really good, it still won't be enough to like have that total fun factor.
It's got to have that fun factor. That's the main thing for me.
Yeah.
Because I play a game to have fun.
Yeah.
The main thing for me. That's also another reason why I'm not really a fan of visual novels. Because I don't think they're fun. They put me to sleep. They're boring. They might have a great story. Yeah, it's a visual novel, for God's sakes, but I'm sitting there pitting A. Like, that's not fun for me. I'm sorry.
All right. Well, how about you, Brandon? How important is the story to you when evaluating?
For me, it's the most important thing. Like I will play a visual novel, right? Like even if there's no gameplay. Like for me, if the storyline is compelling enough, I will put up with almost anything. And that's not. I'm not saying that to developers to just be like, just take the week off. It doesn't. The gameplay doesn't matter. The gameplay matters. Of course it matters. Like I'm gonna prefer a game that is fun to play. But like if a story has really gripped me, I almost don't care if it's not super fun because I'm getting, I don't know, I'm getting enjoyment from the story on a different sort of level, you know what I mean? So yeah, the storyline and the characters, like the characters are such an important part of whether or not I enjoy the story. You can have an amazing story, but if your characters aren't good, then you kind of just have a plot, and that's not like as good, right? It's just not, it's not compelling.
So, what do you two think about that in terms of the role of characters within a story and their importance?
Characters are huge. You know, you could have a compelling villain, a villain that you love to hate, a compelling protagonist. Like I remember when I first started up Tales of the Abyss. I hated it. I hated it. If you've ever played Tales of the Abyss, you know why. Because Luke, he was insufferable. He was so annoying, so obnoxious. He was just a brat. I wanted to reach to the screen and smack him. But after you play the game, you understand why he's like what he's like, and he changes, and he grows. He's an example of a great character.
Yes.
Yeah, I was going to say, based off of your thoughts, like, what are your thoughts on Final Fantasy 13? Because I think that's a pretty divisive Final Fantasy game.
It is.
For a lot of the reasons you're like discussing, like a lot of people don't like Hope, and I love Hope. And I'm like, you literally see, like, your mom dies. Of course, you're going to be angry, and like, you like. I think he's a very misunderstood character.
Yeah.
And I think that cast in general is really compelling because they hate each other like 90% of the game.
Yeah.
But they're just like and they just have to deal with each other's BS the entire time.
Right.
And I think that's really compelling. I like that aspect of that game a lot.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. I fell off of 13 the first time I tried to play it. I didn't actually finish it. But then I went back a few years later, and I like mainlined all 3 of the 13 trilogy. And I had a different perspective on it, I guess, and I enjoyed it so much more for a lot of the reasons you're talking about. Like the character relationships are really compelling. So it takes a decent plot and it elevates it into like a good story.
Thank you.
I'm still not a fan of that. I don't care what you say.
I know you're not.
All right, finally, Cam, what about you? How important is the story for you?
I feel like when I'm reading this, I want to I feel like I want to change my answer, but like no, but it's important because like that's like the main reason I go into JRPGs. I want to experience a great story. Like that is the in factor for me. And then my favorite like. The gameplay, turn-based combat action RPG, normally that you get in JRPGs, just happens to be some of my favorite type of gameplay as well. But if the gameplay can't keep me interested, or it doesn't respect my time, like that story's got to be like one of the best stories ever made, or I'm just gonna stop playing it. Like I might get some heat for this, but I kind of stopped playing Octopath Traveler 2 because there were. Like I thought the chapter stuff was really interesting, but when you're going from like town to town, the I don't mind random encounters, but they happen so frequently, and then each battle's like 2 to 4 minutes long. And this is like an 80-hour game, so I'm like, oh, 50 hours of this is just combat, and like that's just not respectful for me of my time. And so but so many people say it's so good, it's so incredible, and I know, and I'm just like, I really want to play it, I really want to love it, but like this is a barrier I kind of have to get over to continue on with that. And so that's just like one example of it, but there needs to be sufficient gameplay, or I'm probably going to bow out.
My secret shame is that I'm in the exact same boat. I'm sorry. I really want to love it too, but I fell off.
Oh my gosh!
I'm sorry. I know. I'm so sorry.
I'm dying
I'm
over
so
here.
sorry. I'm so sorry. I feel nobody feels worse about it than I do.
Yeah, I feel bad about it because like a lot of people like that love JRPGs that I respect their opinion of. Like it was like their game of the year last year.
Yeah.
I'm like,
yeah.
Fantastic.
I respect the heck out of the game. I really do. It's just I couldn't. Anyway.
Hey, well, you know, I was going to say, I want you the three of you to get a little more heated about this.
Yeah.
You're agreeing too much. So the next question, I'm hoping we can really get you fired up about, like, what specific elements of a JRPG plot needs to be good for it to work for you? What's your favorite aspect? I know we mentioned villains, characters, but, like, if this game doesn't have this, I'm writing it off. Is there anything like that for you?
I love a good plot twist.
Okay.
I love a good plot twist. There's a couple games that kind of go under the radar that nobody's really played, but you might want to play them because they have some great plot twists. One that comes to mind is Batten Kaitos, the first one, Eternal Wings of the Lost Ocean. If you played it halfway through the game, you know exactly what I'm talking about. It is a fantastic. Oh, I see somebody pointing at me. The remake, you let you skip all the stuff. The remake lets you skip them. Anyway, I played that thing back on the GameCube. That's funny. No, but it has a fantastic plot twist. Another game that has a fantastic plot twist that I love is Arc Rise Fantasia. Doesn't get a lot of respect. It's on the Nintendo Wii. It was one of the only RPGs on the Wii. There was pretty much that. There was Xenoblade Chronicles and some other garbage. But like, it was such a good game, and I was playing on through it. It was hard, but then I got about 20 or so hours in, and this plot twist happens, and it's like, whew, the shit hits the fan, and it is good. It is such a good game.
It's kind of like Suikoden 2, where you beat the bad guy halfway through the game, and you're like, no, this is the halfway point.
Yeah.
It's just like, oh, okay.
That's how I felt about those two games that I just talked about. Yeah, you think that you're done, and you're like, really? No. What? No?
Yeah, so that element of surprise is really important. And you also mentioned in your response to us before the panel that you really like a world that you want to explore. So world is also really important to you.
World maps.
Yeah.
Like, I love world maps. I've said what I've said about world maps before that I can't say here. But I love a good world map. Being able to go out and explore and just being able to see all sorts of different locations. I don't like whenever a world is very samey. There's a reason why I don't like a lot of the slice of life stuff, because you don't get to see a whole lot of the world, you know? But whenever you're playing like an epic spanning, you know, RPG where you get an airship and a ship and you get to go to the underworld and the overworld and all this other kind of stuff, like that's really cool. You get to see a lot of different stuff, and I really enjoy that, yeah.
Awesome. All right, and then we'll move on to Brandon. So what are the most important spots of a JRPG plot for you?
Yeah, so going back to the characters for me, it really is all about compelling characters and like their relationships with each other. And I think you had mentioned earlier, Cam, like one of you mentioned it. It wasn't me, I'm too stupid. But one of you mentioned like the characters having to change and grow and become better. From beginning to end. With Luke, it was the example you gave. Like that to me is just absolutely key, because if the characters aren't changing, I mean, it's a fundamental of storytelling, right? Whether it's a novel or a movie or a TV show or whatever, like characters experiencing conflict, changing because of it is just absolutely vital. And then the antagonist for me is also really important. I've already talked about my love for the like so evil, so bad they're good kind of villains like Kefka. You know I have a
good one.
You know I love
from Wild Arms XF. I love her.
I haven't played that.
I love her.
It's on my shelf. It's on my list. But I even prefer the kind of the morally gray villains, like I think you were mentioning, Cam, where it's almost like you know, I kind of get where they're coming from, and you feel bad about it because they're like, this is the bad guy. You're not supposed to relate to this guy. I'm supposed to relate to these wide-eyed kids over here that are saving the world. But I'm like,
friendship.
yeah, but like I kind of see where he's coming from, and so that to me is just like that's so much more interesting. As a component of a story, because it makes you as the person who's experiencing the story have to wrestle with that same idea, and even more so when the characters find themselves relating to the villain a little bit. It complicates their antagonistic relationship. I just love that. I love that so much.
I have to interject here and say sometimes I don't like that. And the reason for that is because I see these villains doing horrible things, and at the very end they're like, oh, I had a bad childhood, I'm so misunderstood. And you're like, shut up, I don't care, I still want to kill you. But then the heroes are like, oh, we're gonna let him live, it's gonna be fine. I'm like, I want you to die.
Yes, the morally gray antagonist can be handled poorly. Definitely can be handled poorly.
I'm sorry. I was deep in thought. I think I think some of my favorite games of all time all have compelling antagonists. Like literally, if I think of my top 5 favorite games, like one of my favorite things about all of their games, respectively, is the antagonist. Like Kingdom Hearts 2, I love Xemnas. Mass Effect 2, I love the Elusive Man. Not JRPG, but I'm sorry. Pokemon Crystal, Silver I still think is the best rival to this day. And just like the growth that Silver had throughout that arc. Literally using a gameplay mechanic for storytelling. The Golbat evolving into the Crobat was showing that he cares about his Pokemon. Like that was such, like as a kid, I was just like, wow, what a, like I understood that as a 7-year-old.
Yeah.
And so I really, really loved that. And then, Luve in the Sky trilogy, I still think about that final boss fight to this day, and just like the kind of mirroring of Joshua and Luve, and like they had the same like backstory more or less. They both went through this horrific stuff, and Luve was just like, I'm just gone. I'm too far gone. I have to do this, and I there's no saving me, and I found that really compelling, like where this character, like when a character just like kind of knows where he has to stand, where he has to, his line is drawn, even if it is doing bad stuff, and those are like some of my favorite.
That's a big reason for like why the Trail series is my favorite series overall, is because there's so many interesting and like complex villains.
There's a lot of stuff to keep track of, but I do think that it's worth it as far as that series is concerned. Sometimes I think that it could be too complicated because they're like, well, here's your first name, but sometimes we're going to call you by your last name, or we're going to call you by your code name, and all this. And it's like, can we just stick to one name? Like,
Well, so it's clear you all really like villains, but what about heroes? Are there any good heroes? Is there
Heroes
anything
I can relate to. No.
They're annoying. We've had enough about the heroes.
I mean, the thing is that most heroes, at least in the older games, they were just kind of blank slates.
Yeah.
You know, they were just, I'm a really good person from a small, tiny village.
Yeah.
You know, so it was the antagonists who were more interesting. But I do like when there is a, I guess, morally gray hero, like Velvet from Tales of Berseria. And then there's that new Atelier that's coming out. Atelier, Yumiya, I think?
Yumiya, yeah.
And we don't know much about it. We just saw the trailer, but she looks like a bitch, and I am ready for it. I am ready for it. Yeah. So like those are the types of heroes that I like. You know?
Yeah. Trails Through Daybreak, like that. I'm in love with that main character. Oh my God, Van is just. I love him.
He's so good. After Reen, Little Goody Two Shoes.
Yeah,
Reen,
like
it's
don't
so
get me
nice
wrong.
to have.
I will always love Reen. I will always have a soft spot in my heart for Reen. But Van is just like so cool, guys.
Estelle and Joshua, obviously, and then I love Sora, but Riku is the best character in Kingdom Hearts, and I stand by that. And I do consider him a hero, despite the arc he goes on. I mean, like, I'm trying to think about some other favorites. Well, I'm blanking.
It sounds like a hero.
I actually do really love Cloud. Like, I think that Cloud kind of, like, I just feel like Cloud, a lot of people kind of are like, oh, Cloud's kind of whatever. But when you find out the truth about Cloud, it's just so compelling. It's like, oh man, like we've basically been playing as a character we literally knew nothing about for 75% of this game.
Yeah. Right.
And just like, and sometimes a lot of times when that happens, it doesn't really work because it's like, we're too far in the game for this now. But like the way that the narrative works in Final Fantasy VII, it does it and it all works and it does it really, really well.
Not to start any kind of drama or anything, but speaking of Cloud, and we know that Part 3 is coming out, thoughts? Any sort of thoughts on anything in particular? Aerith? Cloud? Anything?
I mean, Cloud should be with Tifa, and that.
Sorry, some beef here today.
That's all I have to say about that. As long as Cloud ends up with Tifa at the end, I'm good.
Okay. Okay.
I think Cloud should spend some time on himself.
He needs to. He'll spend some time with the live stream.
Yeah.
Because it sounds like whether it's a hero or a villain, someone with some variation in their character, not just like, I'm 100% evil, I got nothing else going on, or 100% good, is helpful for the story.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Then finally, Cam, we'll get to you now. What are your favorite or best elements of a JRPG plot for you?
Yeah, again, it depends on the type of JRPG. If you're going from town to town, like Trails, Pokemon, things like that, I want the... If you're offering side quests, I want the side quests to be good. I want them to matter, and I think Trails does a great job at that. But then even with like Pokemon, like I think again in Pokemon Crystal, like the towns were so distinct from one another, and you did like very like obscure tasks that was really surprising. And even to this day, when having played more Pokemon games, like I've never done something so obscure as to like the Ampharos or Ampharos, I forgot the Pokemon's name, where they need like the medicine, and you're just like trying to heal this Pokemon. I was just like, oh, that was a cool thing. And you know, going to the Bellsprout Tower and just like these kind of, they add these like iconic aspects to the setting that make you care about that world, right? Like we were talking about world maps, and like Johto was definitely like a world map that I would love to like have displayed. And it's a very simple, like, go from the next city to the next city, kind of what you were saying earlier, David. But then, again, yeah, if it's an open world thing, I just want you to use the NPCs to make that world feel real, make it feel alive, make it... Because the thing is, like, at the end of the day, if there's a story and I don't really... Like, I care about the characters, but, like, I don't really care about the setting, that is going to affect my overall enjoyment. Like, if I don't really care about the world that I'm in, why should I care about saving it?
Sure.
Yeah, I can see that. As far as side quests are concerned, I've got to say the best side quest I've ever really seen still is Chrono Trigger. It's got to be. I hate whenever you get side quest. Can you go kill 5 Rabbites? No, I don't want to. I don't care. But like ones that, you know, they involve the world spanning. You get something that matters. You get an ultimate weapon or something. That's the kind of side quest that I like. You know?
Yeah, I actually want to, and I also want to mention a specific game that really, really surprised me in like all the best ways when I first played it, which was Mario and Luigi Superstar Saga. Like it was a brand new, like you know, you go to a because I'm not like
those are high quality.
I like Mario. I'm not crazy about Mario as an IP, but I do like Mario, and I played Mario and Luigi Superstar Saga, and I was just floored, like playing throughout. It was so charming, like. Going to the Bean Kingdom, you're in a brand new place, like, oh, cool, it's an actual brand new location. And just like how the characters that you interact with, like, play off Mario and Luigi, where they know that Mario is this big, like, world savior.
Hero, yeah.
And then with Luigi, they're like, you're Mario's brother, why? Right? You're Luigi, right?
And you're also here.
And
why are you here?
You're also here. And it was really refreshing that Bowser wasn't the main antagonist again. And like the way that they play with Bowser. I personally like when they make Bowser a complete nerd, like in Paper Mario. Like that's my favorite interpretation of Bowser. Instead of just being like this, I'm evil. And so that's another game that I think does a really good job at like making you care about the world that you're in and making you care about saving it and things like that.
And there's another Mario and Luigi game coming up.
Brothership.
Brothership. I'm totally looking forward to that. Yeah, that's going to be good.
Hey, awesome, thank you. Well, we're kind of getting to the end of the discussion. I want to wrap up kind of the first part here, and we've learned a lot about JRPG stories, what you like, what you dislike about them. How are you feeling about the discussion so far?
So far, so good.
Not too many arguments yet.
We're not fighting yet.
Nobody's hurt my feelings, so we're doing great.
Okay, you'll be friends after the panel still? Okay,
maybe.
Glad to hear it. Well, of course, we would like to talk about one of NIS America's titles that's here at PAX today, and we have one title in particular that I think is really relevant to our discussion about stories. We've got some hints up on the stage here, and I'm going to go ahead and play the trailer for you so you can get an idea of what it looks like.
In Ivoire, a world dotted with countless islands of all shapes and sizes, a girl embarks on an adventure accompanied by the souls of the dead. Marona and Ash travel to islands far and wide, providing aid to those in need.
Yep, that's me. Who are you?
You'll go no further. For her sake, I will not fail.
But one day, the duo is separated when they are attacked by a fleet of ghost ships. Marona washes ashore on a not-so-deserted island where she meets Apricot, the daughter of a legendary pirate.
Please, somebody help this girl! Please!
In hopes of reuniting with Ash, Marona decides to team up with Apricot. But first, she'll need to reassemble the legendary pirate crew that defeated the Ghost Fleet once before. As pirates and ghost ships terrorize the seas, the tale of a girl and her bond with phantoms unfolds before your very eyes. With the unique Confine system, anything and everything can become an ally. Confine the souls of your allies into weapons and natural objects to summon them in battle. Your choices about what, when, and where to confine your phantom friends bring limitless strategic options. Confine souls into everything from robots and buggies to cannons, a pirate classic, to add them to your crew. And if all else fails, pull off a show-stopping transformation by confining souls into yourself to turn the tide of battle. With infinite options, the sky's, or should I say seas, the limit.
Chartreuse! Yeah!
Stealing powers? Just who are you?
Hey! Are you a phantom that can speak? I'm a phantom. I can't talk to anyone or touch anything. Apricot, please trust me. Now fight by my side! Wait, Ash?
I am Gray, not Ash. Phantom Brave,
Sorry.
the lost
You'll have some
hero.
things to say in a moment, dude. Definitely not Ash.
No, he couldn't possibly.
Well, thank you. So that is Phantom Brave, the Lost Hero. This is the long-awaited second game in the Phantom Brave series. So the original Phantom Brave game actually will be celebrating its 20th anniversary tomorrow. So that's really exciting and good timing. And by the way, we'll actually be taking a commemorative photo with the folks here in the audience at the end of the panel. If you would like to participate, just hang around for a bit and we'll take a photo to post on our NIS America social media account.
Cool.
So this is a strategy RPG, but today we're going to be talking about the story, of course, because that's our team of the panel today. So very briefly, I want to explain a bit about the characters. You saw some of the story setup, and then we'll get our opinions of the folks here that have actually played the demo at our booth as well. So first of all, we have Marona. She's the lead character who defeated the big boss at the end of the first game, but she's back, and she has this unusual power to interact with souls of the dead. So she has her friends Ash and Apricot, who are both phantoms, and she works as a chroma, helping to solve people's problems. Then we have Ash, who is a young phantom man who has been Marona's guardian for a very long time, ever since her parents have passed away, and they're traveling the world together. But unfortunately, at the beginning of Phantom Brave the Lost Hero, they get separated, so Marona is on a quest to find him again. And while she's looking for him, she runs into Apricot, who's a lonely phantom girl who is also looking for someone. In her case, it's her father. So they team up together and go on a big adventure together around the island world of Ivoire on a pirate ship, assembling a big crew of pirates. So I actually jumped ahead, I'm sorry, and already explained the story, but I'd love to hear your thoughts. Also, David, what were your thoughts on that trailer? I know you were giggling at the end there.
It was just, I'm not Ash. I'm like, come on. No, it was just.
We gotta have a little, it's a very cute and colorful game.
It is.
We might
It
even
is
say
super
it's a bit
cute,
of a
but I
cozy
just had to
game,
laugh
but,
at that point.
You
Yeah,
gotta have
it
some
was just
tension
funny.
there. Yeah.
No, there seems to be like, I don't want to say a resurgence because there never really was any in the past, but just like a new theme of these pirate RPGs coming out. There's a lot of pirate RPGs coming out, and I like that new take because we haven't really seen that before in the past. So I think that that's cool because a lot of strategy RPGs, whenever you play them, they take place on one continent, one land, one kingdom's under attack. The queen is, captured or something, and you gotta, defend your kingdom, whatever. But this is different, so it's a different take on that, being able to sail the high seas and do, go to different islands and all that kind of stuff. So
Yeah. What about you two? Any thoughts about that trailer or the premise in general?
Yeah, so this
stands
is
out to you?
So this is a really good example of one of those stories that I talked about at the beginning, where it's like, as much as I like the kind of dark and twisted, deep, serious JRPGs, like you need a Phantom Brave every now and then because it's just like fun, lighthearted, like it's funny frequently, like it's not taking itself super seriously like a lot of these games are. It's making jokes, it's making you laugh.
I really like happy, upbeat, bright, fun things. The world's dark enough. We don't need
right.
Like,
but yeah, like the characters, I love that it's once again following Marona because she's just like a ray of sunshine. I don't know how many of you have played the original Phantom Brave?
Anyone out here played the original?
Quite,
awesome.
Okay,
Thank you.
Cool.
Yeah, so like she's just a delight, you know what I mean? And Ash, of course, stoic, like I'm gonna protect her, but
he's no longer there.
But he's
vanished.
But yeah, like it's a breath of fresh air. To me.
Yeah, I'm super excited for this game. I like how each, if you haven't played the original, each chapter is kind of split off in different islands, so you get like that variety in the storytelling and the gameplay, where you get to meet new characters, you get to meet new locations, and it's kind of like a time in a bottle type thing where it's like, okay, we've done this thing, now we're going to this thing.
Yeah.
Just kind of like visiting towns on a world map, right? But then also like there's there's the opportunity for some like really compelling storytelling with like Marona being able to talk to phantoms, and like while it is a cutesy game, there's also still the opportunity of talking about like morality or like what is like what's it like being a ghost, like what's it like being dead and like technically and not being able to interact with people the way that you used to, and like I think that's really fascinating.
Yeah, you touched on a really interesting point. So early on in the story, she meets Apricot. Apricot's been alone on an island all by herself. She's a ghost. And of course, people who stick around as ghosts, they have unfinished business, right? So her getting in touch with Marona is like she finally has met someone that can help her kind of carry out her mission of why she's still stuck as a ghost, basically. Yeah, so we kind of were slowly moving into our final question of today about what makes this story or setting feel like a JRPG to you, and you kind of touched on it just now, but I wanted to hear from two of you.
I'm just gonna put it right out there.
Yeah.
Because it's like nonsense. It's just fun. That's all it is. It's just fun. It's not like super serious, you know, like a Western RPG would have to be. I mean, she's a ghost, for God's sakes, and she can, you know, communicate with phantoms and all of this, and she's taking her little pirate ship, commandeering it, and driving around to other islands and fighting and everything. Like, it's just eating like a suspension of disbelief, you know, to play these games. Because it's just fun. It's just fun. You don't take it too seriously. You just go in and you have a good time with it.
Yeah, and I think you were alluding to this as well, Cam, like the idea of visiting all these different islands. It's sort of like each island is kind of its own like little self-contained short story in and of itself that fits into the broader like tapestry of the overall story. So it's like you're doing all this exploration, going to these islands, but you're still following this narrative path that the developers have laid out in like you would in any other JRPG. So that to me is kind of a key element of it.
Yeah, and it shows that like you're going to rebuild this legendary crew. So it's just I'm looking forward to seeing what those like relationships are going to look like with these characters. Like what made them a legendary pirate crew, and like how do they take on to Apricot being you know, the daughter of this legendary captain. Like, because they could just be like, oh, I don't like her. Like, you know, just like, oh, she was annoying, things like that. It doesn't have to be like, oh,
who's this girl that's
like, I want there,
right.
you know, I like there to be conflict. You know, and it can be done in ways that it's while still like maintaining the tone of the type of game that Phantom Brave is trying to be, but still having that confliction, that tension between these characters and their relationships and how they evolve over time.
And there's some really nice intrigue. I don't know if you've had a chance to play the demo yet, but if you beat that demo level, you find out that Apricot's idea of her father that she's trying to find is maybe not 100% accurate. Like, she may not have actually known him as well as she thinks. So there's these little, like, interesting little nuggets, little seeds that are being sown. I'm looking forward to seeing how it goes.
Thank you, and you segued right into my final discussion, which is to promote our demo. So please stop by the booth and play the demo. And we also want to share that we will be having an interview with the three of you, and the scenario writer from Phantom Brave, The Lost Hero, Mr. Jobana, is going to be published on our YouTube channel in the near future, so please stay tuned for that. We're very excited for it.
That was such an amazing experience.
Yeah.
We just did that this week, y'all.
Yeah.
We just did that like 2 or 3 days ago.
Yeah.
Yeah. We all got together for it. It was amazing. It was
Really
I've never gotten a chance to interview someone who works on a JRPG before.
Yeah.
So like the insight was really cool.
Yeah, we'll just say really quick because we have 1 minute. I do think that it was really cool because NIS was very like they were very open to us like really asking him anything.
Yeah.
And we got to really focus on like what's it like being a writer for a JRPG developer and things like that, and how does it translate to this game. So we hope you enjoy it.
Yeah, they gave us a list of questions and we literally changed every single question. We really did.
So if you enjoyed today's discussion, I really hope you look forward to checking that out. And thank you all so much for joining us today, both here and in the stream. And if you'd like to stick around for the photo at the end, please do come toward the center and we'll take a photo in just a moment.
Cool.
And please be sure to stop by our booth and try out this demo as well as some of our other titles. Thank you.
All right, thanks everybody.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you so much. This was great. Thank you.